Welcome to FOBtv, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist and partner here at TCS, and I want to welcome each of you to the show today. Our guest today is Katie Simmonds. She's the co-founder and chief operating officer of SIGA, and that stands for the Sports Integrity Global Alliance. She is also an English qualified lawyer specializing in sports law. In addition to all of that, she's also a very big champion for issues related to equality, justice, and sustainability. Katie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin. What an intro. And really excited to be here and looking forward to discussing the future of sport, not just the business, but its integrity.
This is going to be a fascinating discussion, and we're going to talk about the context of this as it relates to future here in just a moment. But before we do that, tell me where you're calling in from today.
I'm calling in live from Geneva. It's fantastic weather here up in the mountains and by the lake. And it's where in Geneva, in Switzerland, in Lausanne, it's home to all of the sports stakeholders, all of the global international federations. And it's actually where SIGA Global has its headquarters. So I haven't been back for a while due to COVID and being on the road, but it's great to be back in Geneva where it all started, the journey of SIGA.
Oh, thank you for doing that. So let's talk about the context here. I talk a lot about the future of business. That's why we call it Future of Business TV. But sports is big business. And one of the things that I've just finished writing a series of articles on the evolution and development in the future of sports itself. And boy, all kinds of different sports are going to be hugely impacted by innovations in health, in medical treatments, in therapies, in just the technology of being able to record and stream and participate digitally in games, the kind of blurring between real-time sports and digital gaming platforms. It goes on and on. There's just huge implications for the future of sports. And your organization, which is dedicated to defending integrity in the entire ecosystem around sports, there's going to be a lot of challenges, and I wanted to touch on those today. So again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and just talk about some of these things. Now, last week, I read a report. It was a recent World Economic Forum report, and it found that 76% of consumers today prefer to spend their money on experiences in the form of sports events and live music concerts, rather than spending it on material possessions. What do you think about that? I know it bodes well for sports, but is that what you're seeing out there?
I just think that's a brilliant statistic and one which just rings true after COVID. We all want to get back into the stadiums and see, with our real eyes, really what is happening live. And why is that? And I think it's the magic of sport, which we can't really grasp. And it is that uncertainty of result. And it's that which keeps us on the edge of the seat. Are we going to win? Is our team going to win? Who's going to make that scoring goal? And it's that which really excites. And that's really sums up the global appeal of this industry and why it continues to innovate, as you mentioned at the start, Kevin. But really, it's all that innovation is around the uncertainty and unpredictability of the result. It's that fresh and live experience, similar to music, although you can watch music again and again. But once that live result is over, you want your next fix of the competition and the tournament. And it's this culture of content, which sport is, which really just continues to drive, innovate, and continues to its global popularity around the world.
You highlighted a couple times is the unpredictability, right? So people are paying money to go and watch an event that they have aspirations and hope for their team, but it's unpredictable. They want to be there, though, for a great experience if their team wins. And of course, it'll be painful if they lose, but that's the suspense that keeps them in their seat and keeps them coming back. And it's that participation, right? The ability to kind of cheer on their team, push them over the line or push them into a goal through their participation. And we see that, and that's where integrity really comes in, isn't it? Why don't you talk to us about what is the importance of integrity in that context?
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the things when you sort of said that description, which those two words jumped out at me, it's the fan engagement. And I was privileged enough to be invited by the Boston Celtics back in March to a game, and they did an amazing job at that, engaging fans throughout the game. And that's what keeps fans coming, and the growth of NBA and everything and other sports around the world. But when going back to integrity, it's that integrity which is the bedrock of sports industry. And the sports industry, yes, it has an economic role, and your podcast is focused on business, but it also has a role in terms of the social development and the social good, because sport, like no other, can inspire, and it's an enabler of change and cultural change with that. So it's all those multi-dimensions of sport that makes it such a fascinating industry, and one which can continue to thrive. But it can only continue to thrive if its integrity is intact. And that's why SIGA was formed as a positive tool. You'll never hear myself or our CEO or any of our team speak negatively about sport. Obviously, we do have instances of the sports industry hitting the pages more and more in increasing times for the wrong reasons. And they're not hitting the back pages where the sport content is. It's not about the performance of the athlete. It's about the governance and the way it's run, and scandals happening. We've seen it with FIFAgate. We've seen it more recently with the NWSL and the sexual exploitation of athletes. We're seeing it with increasing cases of sports betting and match fixing and match manipulation. And it's those integrity issues which sport needs to come in front of to ensure that those governing the sport are the custodians of the game, are governing it properly, and also to ensure the global appeal and that unpredictable element continues to remain unpredictable. Because once that's damaged, and that could happen with sports betting integrity, and SIGA as an organisation, we're not against sports betting. We're just wanting regulation in it to be robust, and for athletes and coaches to be educated to ensure the unpredictability of sport doesn't become predictable, and that it stays authentic and true to its values, because that will erode not just the social dimension, but it will eventually erode the business. And we've already seen that with global sponsors walking away. It's happened with various scandals. It happened with what happened to FIFA back in 2015, which was actually the date that SIGA was formed. I don't know if it was just a response to that, but there was a need in the industry, and it was great timing. And I can go into more detail later on in the show about what SIGA is to share with your global audience.
Yeah, it's a good time to do that right now. But the question I always have is, boy, that takes a lot of confidence or a lot of dedication and commitment for you and Emmanuel and the rest of the team to form an organization for the purpose of changing culture and defending integrity. That is a massive undertaking. I mean, talk to us about that process, and how does an association that go from an idea to actually trying to improve global sports?
I think, an idea, it starts with conceive, then it's believe, and then it's achieve. And we're now in the achieving stage of our mission. And our mission is simple. It's sport clean worldwide. It's sport with integrity, played under the lights and governed under the lights in pure transparency with accountability. And it is about cultural changes, changing hearts and minds and the way that things are run. Because quite simply, it's easy to carry on with the status quo of any industry and to continue the governance. And so we're really asking for those leaders and best practices to take a step forward and to show what they're doing within their organization, and to come on a journey with SIGA. We're not asking organizations to be perfect at this stage. We're asking them to a willingness to change in a positive I mentioned we're not negative, in a positive, proactive way. And how we've done that is to create, we are a coalition, if you like, a coalition of willing. And we're trying to create the political will, or we are creating the political will, by shining an example on best practice. And we established a membership model so that everybody, which is affordable, we've got different bands of memberships. And the membership is the lifeblood of our organization, and it feeds into all of our reforms. So we have members like global sponsors like MasterCard as one of our members, as well as sports and governments. And it's this multi-stakeholder coalition that drives our collective action. And all of it is anchored on a set of universal standards on sport integrity that we didn't just pluck from the air. These standards were specifically set up and established by task force industry experts, and they are tailored to sport. They are business standards that you have in every other business, but they are tailored specifically to the sports industry. And it's a guide to help them really achieve excellence and go on this governance journey. And in order to ensure that we bring about that accountability, we've developed the first ever sports integrity rating system. And that's which really drives the change. And really, it's not innovative for other industries. You have Uber, you have a star system. I'm sat in a hotel in Geneva and I know what star it is. And that gives it that badge of excellence and trustworthiness that you know the quality of the service before you're going in. So why wouldn't sport be any different? Surely it wouldn't. Why wouldn't the sports organizations want to show to the fans, to the sponsors, to the broadcasters that are the main funders of the industry, what its rating is, to show that it's fit for purpose, that it's open for business, and that it adheres to the same standards that many of the sponsors like TCS adhere to, standards of values, which are a school of values, and that it's got integrity at its core. And that's what we've developed, and we've tested the system, and sports organizations can go through it, and they can show that they are bronze, silver, and gold, good, better, and best practice. So we're bringing that innovation to the industry as a tool to drive business so that sponsors and the broadcasters can use that when they are making investments. They can look at the sports properties and see, well, how diverse are their board? Because that's a core value to me. And my fans, my consumers are going to hold us accountable if we sponsor a sport that's, for example, all male run, when we are trying to appeal to a diverse demographic of consumer. So that's in a nutshell the cultural change. And we are looking for champions. And we call for, it's open for our, SIGA membership is open. And we're looking for sponsors, sports organizations and governments to join our efforts and be part of this exciting change, and which we believe will result in greater funding for the industry and greater sustainability from a financial model if the integrity is in check.
And on the note of financial models, let's talk about some of the economics of sports. What are some of the ways that teams collect revenue? What are the sources of revenue in general across sports?
Yeah, well, I would say that the bulk of the revenue is from the commercial exploitation of the audiovisual rights. And then second to that here is the commercialization of the sponsorship rights. And then the smaller revenue streams is the ticketing. And that makes sense because obviously the audiovisual rights are for mass consumers. And then the ticketing, you're sort of hung really by the size of the stadium and other revenue. And just to put it into context, I wrote a couple of stats down to remember, but I thought I would share with your global audience that in 2015, European soccer, the direct revenue was 25 billion. And then I was involved in a Harvard study of European soccer. And then we looked into what the global sports market was worth in 2015, and it was 35 billion US dollars. So that was the industry in 2015. And what would you say what happened in 2008, Kevin, when there was the credit crunch? What percentage do you think the European soccer industry went up or down by in a horrible time which, even I was qualifying as a lawyer in 2008, and I struggled to get a job. So it hit me in the legal profession. What do you think happened in the European soccer?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it went up because people are trying to escape their problems.
I love that. It's all about escapism and hedonism in my world, Kevin. And that's what sports provides. So you're right, it went up by 8%. But the real reason why, and I'm not saying you're wrong for that, and I think that's a very legitimate reason, but the reason why it went up was the way that the commercial rights was exploited. And that was through the collective selling of the TV rights. And that collective selling is done in advance. It's done in bundles of minimum of 3 years. And that acts as a cushion for the industry and protects the economics. So it's a very different kind of industry, which, yes, obviously COVID was a period of contraction, but still the industry is growing because those TV rights and audiovisual rights were agreed beforehand. And that money was sort of ring fenced. And so, yes, we see ups and downs and dips in terms of the economics, but sport is vibrant, and the economic growth does need to be commensurate with the integrity. Otherwise, that will erode the rights. And the TV rights, particularly at the moment, are at risk of being eroded with digital piracy. We had a session on that during Sport Integrity Week, and we can share. I've shared it online on the SIGA Twitter and LinkedIn on that session, and I can put a link to this to that as well. But that's why we're calling for the legalization of the protection of those rights, because that really is part of the integrity of the industry as well.
Oh, so on that note, let's talk about the impact when there is a lapse of integrity. You talked about piracy and the fact that the pirating games and streaming games and things like that can cause a lot of problems, economic problems and challenges for the industry. What other ways, when there is a lapse in integrity, is the business model impacted?
Well, I think it goes right to hitting the sponsors in the stomach, really, which is the reputational risk. I think many sponsors do stick with the sponsorship, but obviously it then puts other sponsors off entering the marketplace, because you have general counsels like me saying, why do you make that investment? Look what's happened to that organization. So there's a hesitation. I would also say that, it can lead to, on the sports betting front, if you don't believe what is being played on the pitch is shown and that is true and that there's match fixing, then you're going to lose your audience. You lose your audience, eventually your TV rights are going to go down. And that's happened in other countries where sports betting has been prevalent. So those are just some of the things that can damage the economic viability of the industry, as well as its global appeal. And it's really, SIGA's and the solution of our independent rating system and universal standards. We're not a regulator, but it's a proactive way for the sports organizations to demonstrate that what they're doing is good governance, is forward thinking, and it's part of a journey. Why wouldn't you want to do the right thing? And we do hope to have more and more sports organizations following. We've had the European Rugby League go through the system. We've got the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, one of our members, going through it soon. We've had European Swimming in the process of going through it. And our CEO and I are in talks with many, many other sports organizations around the world. And I do honestly believe, because I've dedicated the last 7 years of my life setting up SIGA with our CEO, I do believe that SERVs and the universal standards will become just an industry standard. It will become a kite mark of excellence that you could even see down to a player wearing it on their jersey. That's what I believe is the future of the industry, to preserve its economic viability.
For those that haven't turned the page or opened the book and looked in and understand the models around business, talk to us about maybe what are some of the top 5 lapses of integrity that are common in sports.
Well, unfortunately, I think one of the top ones at the moment is what's happening in women's sport, and that's the sexual harassment and exploitation of female athletes. It also has happened in European soccer. Men have come forward as well. So there is this, positive whistleblowing. But with that, I think many athletes previously and even today remain scared that they're going to lose their place on the team if they come forward. So that's one of them. I would say sports betting, it's out there. You can't ban it. And that's not really the answer. But there does need to be greater international cooperation with the governments, with the operators, with the regulators, and with the sports. SIGA provides a platform for that. And we have our standards on sports betting integrity. And then I would say the third one, I'll do 3 rather than 5. But the third one really is the financial flows, the financial transactions, fees to agents that aren't declared. Particularly, again, it's in soccer. But also we've seen tax evasion, money laundering, and just poor financial management and the sustainability. Obviously, you have closed league in the US, but you don't have the financial sustainability issues that European soccer does. But I think that other smaller sports or Olympic sports are finding the sustainability and the viability. The fourth one, actually, I'll go for a 4. For the fourth one, I would say is nothing really to do with integrity, but I think it's a challenge for sports organizations. And that is the attention of the viewer, which is going down. All of us are getting shorter and shorter attention spans because we're just fed with so much media all the time and everything is so fast. And so sports need to adapt, their playing model for the new generation in order to capture their attention. But with that, we need to ensure that the integrity is also maintained. Okay, I'll give you 5, Kevin, as I'm in a really generous mood. I would say the 5th one is diversity and inclusion. Today it's unacceptable to have a lack of diversity in any industry, and sport is up there with one of the worst. I would say there are positive strides being made. I know that as a female leader, I have a responsibility and a duty and a passion to help those younger generations of female leaders, come up with me. It's not enough that I'm here talking to you today. And we have a global female mentorship program, and it's in its 4th cycle. We're delivering mentorship to 200 young girls. So shout out to all the mentees who are so supportive and listening. But I believe that creating pathways, and it's not just for women, it's for people from all diverse backgrounds as well. It's really important that we create that stepping stone and pathway, not just a stone, but a pathway. And that those of us who are in leadership positions do help support and be part of a legacy that creates a change, because that will also create a more appealing industry which will appeal to different demographics. And that's really what all the sponsors want to appeal to. And that's why they choose sport. So why would we just have the same type of people running it?
Oh, very good. Thank you for sharing that. So it seems that sports integrity, the concept of integrity in sports, is more than just following standards or rules. It's really a culture, isn't it? So how do you impact culture? It's so challenging.
It's got to be through, and I'll plug it again, it's SIRVS, the SIGA Independent Rating and Verification System, because that gives you the grade and the independent scrutiny and the accountability. And it's only through, finding out where you are. Are you 70%? Are you below 70%? What do I need to get? What's the gap analysis to get from 70 to 80? What does excellence look like? How can I be gold? And that really is how you can influence culture. To do that, you need the brave leaders who are going to take that step and say, we're not just going to mark our own homework here. We're going to open ourselves up. We're going to see where we are, and we're going to go on this journey. And again, this is not finger pointing. It's not negative. It just makes better business. That's what I believe integrity does. It equals better business. And it would be a real win, personal win for me, but a real win and a goal for SIGA if a sponsor like TCS or MasterCard used our rating system to make a business decision of where they were going to invest in sport.
Ah, brilliant. So, Katie, what's the biggest challenges that SIGA faces?
I would say our biggest challenge is a sports organization that has a lack of term limits. Because then you've got the same person perpetuating power at the top. And that's why we're not just, targeting the CEOs, the presidents of sports organizations. We are targeting the young people and the influencers. We have a brilliant youth council, shout out to Taylor, Ed, many others, Carla. But we need to create that new generation of thinkers. But we also do need those brave presidents and CEOs. And if a sports organization has a constitution that doesn't have a term limit for a fixed number of terms, can be 2, can be 3, can be 4, but no more, then you're going to find a stagnant sports organization, and they're not going to go through serves. They're not going to be open to diversity and inclusion. And they really, I think eventually they will stagnate both in terms of their integrity, but also in their global appeal. So it's really changing that constitution, changing the culture, changing the governance, that we can open up, the tide for integrity to flow in, and for the business to continue to perpetuate, because that's what we want. We want sport to continue to grow as an industry. We want more sport. We want more types of sport, and we want more sports fans, more consumers, and more sponsors and broadcasters wanted to get involved, so that we all can continue working in this wonderful, vibrant industry and have a role to play within it.
So when I just finished the series that I was writing on the future of sports integrity, Katie, I was just taken back by the immense challenge ahead for sports. I mean, there's just huge leaps that we're going to experience in therapies and the ability to rehabilitate from injuries much quicker, the ability to compete further in our life. So maybe we can be in our mid 40s. We can all be like the Tom Brady's of American football. We're at 45. We're at 45. They're still competing at the top of their game. Many, many therapies are coming out with huge promise in that area. I could see a challenge if the fan base were taking advantage of therapies not yet available to the athletes through their programs, because it doesn't always happen at the same time, right? Suddenly there's an innovation, yet it takes a few years for everyone to think through the implications to a particular sport. So I see not only the technology challenges, I see the ability for health and therapies and anti-aging. All of that lies ahead for all sports. And increasingly, I also see out there these content broadcasting solutions, which are automated by not only robotics, but actually artificial intelligence, which allow for low-cost streaming and very good capture of low-level games. It might even be at a school-level game, can be set up with 24 cameras all feeding into an artificial intelligence engine that knows how to capture in 3D the play of individual players, to create highlight reels, to automatically add up statistics, show you what's special about a play that just happened. All of this can be automated. So you see these lower and lower class. I can see 8-year-olds out there fully covered in 3-dimensional game coverage. But, but that brings its own challenges, of course, too, because if those games are available to watch, somebody's going to want to bet on them. And suddenly there's going to be the challenge of trying to influence an 8-year-old or their parents to win or lose a game. So, I mean, there's all those challenges out there. So I think you have a lot of work in the future. I think sports has a lot of work in the future. but a massive amount of opportunity as well, Katie.
I think there's a huge opportunity, and yes, the therapy, bring it on. I might be able to get my marathon shoes back on. I've got a bit of a knee injury at the moment, but I also see that other things that I've seen that I'm not sure if you're aware of. I'm sure you are, Kevin. But fan-controlled games where the fans are making the decisions. Also with the audience being the ones that are doing the streaming, which is amazing. And as you said, it's going back into the camera, which I don't understand, but actually it's creating its own sort of content, its own kind of game within a game, and also giving visibility to the fans. I think playing with the fan and the athletes, that dimension is really exciting. And also the stats on the athletes. There's so many stats that you can get, from the athletes. It's quite intrusive. I'm a bit of a rugby union fan, and back in the old days, they used to sink a couple of pints of Guinness and go on and play. But today they can't do that because they're getting, it's been professionalized totally since then. Hopefully not lost the enjoyment of that. But that era really sort of led to the professionalization. But with all of that data, all comes down to data, doesn't it? That data, there is a risk of, the data being eroded for the integrity of that. And I think that, especially on sports betting, it just provides more data, more options, which more risk of potential match fixing. Mm-hmm. So I think that it creates more opportunities, but with that, there are vulnerabilities, and that's with anything. We are willing, able, and look forward to engaging more sponsors. This is a call to action for more sponsors to join the SIGA platform, be the champions of change, join us, join our global movement, and really be part of the future and protecting the future of sport, its economics, its viability, and most importantly, even more importantly than anything else, the social good that it can do, because it does bring us all together. That's how I've met you, Kevin. It's because of sport and the industry, and many other people around the world that SIGA's working with. So I'd just like to thank you for inviting me on this very special podcast. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much, Katie.